The Slack notification blinked in the corner of Elena's laptop, just as she was pulling on her coat, apple pie balanced in one hand, car keys in the other. FYI, Madison presented the EcoHub concept this morning. The board was impressed. Said it's a game changer. Congrats to her. Elena blinked. What? Her pulse quickened. She set the pie down on her kitchen island, ripped the laptop back open, and scrolled to the email thread. Madison, her colleague, her competitor, the one who had constantly borrowed ideas in meetings and somehow spun them into boardroom wins. Elena had stayed late for weeks refining that EcoHub presentation, down to every stat, every 3D rendering, every line of code in the environmental tracking prototype. And Madison had presented it as her own. There was no time to fight it now. Her parents' Christmas dinner started at 3 sharp, and being late only confirmed, in Susan Morgan's eyes, that Elena didn't take family seriously. She closed the laptop, swallowed the fury, and told herself, later. File it. Focus. The pie still smelled like cinnamon and apples, like the ones Grandma Evelyn used to bake. The scent made Elena hesitate. Don't lose it. Not yet. By 2:55 p.m., she was parked in her parents' circular driveway, the suburban house gleaming with symmetrical perfection, twinkling white lights outlining the roof, wreaths on the windows, twin trees flanking the door, the very image of holiday bliss. And yet her stomach twisted. She adjusted her forest green dress in the mirror, polished, poised. Her hair curled softly around her face. She had worn the locket's replacement, a simple pendant. Not that anyone would notice. This time will be different, she told herself. When the door opened, her mother stood there in red cashmere, pearls at her ears. Elena, right on time, Susan said, stepping aside without enthusiasm. Merry Christmas, Mom. Elena smiled, holding out the pie. Susan took it wordlessly and disappeared into the kitchen. Elena juggled the 4 perfectly wrapped gifts, one for each member of the family, and entered the living room. Her father, Robert, laughed heartily, clapping Jason, her older brother, on the back. That's my boy! Closed the deal the same day he signed the papers. Genius! Jason smiled, radiant in navy wool, his arm casually around his wife, Heather. The diamond bracelet on her wrist glittered under the chandelier. Jason looked over at Elena and gave a nod that barely registered. She felt like a server, not a sister. Elena's here, her mother called from the kitchen, without turning around. There were a few distracted waves. Sophie, her younger sister, broke away briefly for a hug. Nice dress, Sophie said under her breath. Just, maybe don't talk about work tonight. Mom's been really stressed. Elena blinked. I didn't plan to. Just saying. Sophie returned to her husband's side. Then came Brianna, her cousin, making her grand entrance with a new boyfriend in tow. Everyone, this is Jack! There were cheers, offers of wine, and giddy questions. Around Brianna's neck hung Grandma Evelyn's locket, the locket she had promised to Elena since she was 8. The locket Elena had gone searching for after the funeral, only to find it already clasped around Brianna's neck and defended by a lie. Elena set the presents beneath the tree. One of them, the silver box tied in blue ribbon, was for Jason, or rather, for his carefully curated myth. She drifted toward the circle where Aunt Nancy was describing her cruise. It sounds amazing, Elena said politely. I've been researching sustainable travel options for... Nancy nodded vaguely, turning her body just enough to exclude Elena. Anyway, as I was saying, the pattern repeated again and again. When family photos were taken, Elena wasn't positioned in the frame. She was handed the camera. You're so good at this sort of thing, her mother said breezily. By the time appetizers were laid out, Elena felt like a shadow version of herself. Jason approached. Green's a bold color, he said, smirking. Architecture firms don't require style, I guess. Elena smiled thinly. How's the market, Jason? I heard interest rates are... For amateurs, my portfolio's solid, he cut in. Then his voice dropped. How's therapy going? Mom mentioned you've been getting... help. Heat rushed to Elena's face. It's going well. Thanks. Jason patted her shoulder condescendingly. We're all very concerned about your stability. She nearly crushed the mushroom tart in her hand. When she moved to the dining room to help set the table, she paused. Something was off. 10 plates, 10 place cards, 12 people in the house. Her name was not on the table. Mom? She asked, finding her in the kitchen. Susan didn't meet her eyes. Oh, don't worry about that now. Go refill the ice bucket, would you? While returning, Elena heard her mother's voice, hushed behind the hallway door. It's not like she enjoys these things anyway. Always brooding. And Jason asked for something more intimate this year. You know how he feels about Elena's attitude. They fell silent when she passed. In the bathroom, she stared at her reflection. How many years will you keep asking them to see you? She reapplied her lipstick. When she returned, everyone was seated. Jason and Heather at Robert's right, Sophie and her husband to Susan's left, Brianna and Jack across from Jason. Aunt Nancy and Uncle Tom completed the circle. No seat for her. Mom, Elena said from the doorway, steadying her voice. Where should I sit? Susan looked up, blinked once. Oh, Elena, the table's full, sweetie. I figured you could eat in the car. It's just for today. Silence dropped like snow. Jason smirked, cutting into his turkey. Why waste a seat? Elena's heart thundered, but she didn't move. Her eyes scanned the table. Her father looked down. Sophie bit her lip. Brianna fiddled with the locket. Only Jack, new to the dysfunction, looked confused. No one spoke, but Elena's silence was louder. She turned to the Christmas tree, lifted Jason's silver gift, and placed it back beneath his plate. If they wouldn't give her a seat, she would leave them with the truth instead. If you've ever been left out after giving your best, type 1. Elena was halfway through the hotel parking lot when her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look. She really didn't. But the subject line glared back at her in bold, urgent, audit requested, project ownership in dispute. From Madison Kane. CC, Senior VP, Ethics and Compliance. Her stomach dropped. Madison had filed a formal inquiry with HR, claiming the EcoHub sustainability model belonged to her, that Elena had contributed in a support role, but had no creative ownership, and now it was being escalated to compliance. She actually filed it. After stealing the entire concept, she's going to bury me for defending it? Elena stood frozen in the icy wind, keys clutched in one hand, pie long forgotten in the trunk. A second email arrived seconds later, this time from Andrew Coleman, VP of Innovation, the same one who had applauded Madison's pitch that morning. Hi, Elena. Can you send me any time-stamped files or internal documentation showing original drafts? I'd like to better understand who led the foundational work on this project. So now she needed to prove her own work. Again. A breath caught in her throat, sharp and cold. Focus later. Dinner first, if that's even what this still is. She walked back inside her parents' house, footsteps heavier now, not just from humiliation, but from disbelief. Corporate betrayal now mirrored family betrayal. Different rooms. Same script. In the dining room, no one acknowledged her return. Jason was describing a nightmare client to their father, gesturing wildly with his fork, basking in the spotlight. His voice, Elena noted, had the same cadence he used in the office, confident, crafted, coded in just enough charm to disarm. She sat in the corner of the living room for a moment, watching them. The envelope was still under his plate, the silver-wrapped box still unopened, and still no one noticed her absence from the table. Flashback, 2 weeks earlier. Dr. Ellen Chase, her therapist, had tapped a finger thoughtfully against her notebook. If you've spent years collecting evidence, Elena, emails, voice notes, messages, what are you hoping to do with it? Make them see the truth, Elena had said, and if they still choose not to? She hadn't answered then, but she knew now. Then I'll stop fighting. She stepped back into the dining room, gaze steady. Jason didn't see her approach, not until she gently rested her hand on the back of his chair. He turned, startled, and looked up. What are you doing? Her voice was calm. I brought you something. It's important. Heather glanced up, sensing the tension. Elena, can it wait until after dinner? their mother asked, her voice strained. No, Elena said. It can't. Jason scowled. Is this about your seat again? Jesus, Elena, get over it. You're being dramatic. You want dramatic? She said softly. Look under your plate. Jason froze. Robert frowned. Elena, that's enough. No, Dad, she interrupted. For once, let me be too much. Jason slowly lifted the edge of his plate. The envelope lay there, cream-colored, thin, precise. He stared at it, confused, then opened it. Silence. Everyone watched him pull out the documents, printouts of text threads, forwarded emails, screenshots. A single-page will from Grandma Evelyn, with a clause highlighted in yellow. To my granddaughter Elena, I leave the silver locket I wore when I first arrived in America. Jason flipped to the next page, and the next. His face blanched. What is this? He asked sharply. The truth, Elena said. Heather reached for the papers, but Jason pulled them away. It's nothing, he snapped. Don't listen to this. She's manipulating things. She's been doing this for years. Then why are you hiding them? Elena asked, cool and steady. He didn't answer. I've made copies, she added, voice crisp. This is just the first set. Brianna's eyes widened. Her hand rose instinctively to the locket. Heather looked at Jason, then at Elena. Is that actually Grandma's will? Elena nodded. He intercepted it. Told you I didn't want the locket. Told Brianna that Grandma gave it to her instead. He's been spinning lies so long he doesn't know how to exist without them. Jason shot up from his chair, napkin falling to the floor. I'm not doing this, he hissed. You won't ruin Christmas just because you're bitter. Oh, I'm not bitter, Elena replied, picking up her bag. But I am done. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a second slip of paper. Read this. Jason didn't move. So Elena spoke the words aloud. This is the last time I try to make you see me. The last time I fight for space at your table. I release you from pretending to love me, and I release myself from needing it. The silence was deafening. Heather slowly pushed her chair back. Brianna looked like she might cry. Even Sophie had tears in her eyes, but she didn't speak. Robert opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Susan stared ahead, unmoved. Elena glanced around the table, at the people who had measured her value in obedience and silence. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but cut sharper than any shout. Check your inboxes tomorrow. You'll each receive a copy, the full truth, for your records. Jason clenched his fists, but said nothing. Elena turned away. In the hallway, she passed the framed family photo from 3 Christmases ago. She was in it, off to the side, eyes already half out of frame. It's always been that way, she realized. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She opened the front door, stepped into the December air, and smiled. This time, she hadn't begged. She had chosen. If you've ever been told to stop making things about you, even when it was about you, type 2. The moment Elena stepped out into the snow, she felt the tension behind her explode. Through the half-closed door, voices erupted, Heather's first. You've been texting another woman at Thanksgiving while I was holding your mother's hand at dinner? Elena didn't need to hear the rest to know where it was going, but she lingered for 1 second more, long enough to hear Jason's defensive snap. You're seriously taking her side? Then came the sound of chairs scraping, napkins tossed. Heather's voice rising. I saw the messages. They're time-stamped, Jason. Don't act like you didn't hit send. Elena didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She walked to her car, cleared the snow from the windshield, and let the cold soak through her gloves. I didn't burn the house down, she thought. I just handed them the matches and walked away. Later that night, as she sat alone in her hotel room service tray empty beside her and her laptop open, another shock arrived. Subject: formal suspension pending investigation, EcoHub attribution from HR Dept. Due to active allegations of misconduct and contested project authorship, we are temporarily suspending your access to all EcoHub-related systems until the review is complete. You will be contacted for an internal interview within 48 hours. Her jaw tightened. Suspended? I'm the one who was stolen from. And yet, here she was, cut off, powerless, until she remembered something. In the months leading up to the pitch, she had exported and timestamped all her design drafts to a secure private archive, separate from the company server, precisely because she had felt Madison might pull something like this. She opened the archive. Inside, files, edits, metadata logs, even screen-recorded sessions of her live building the interface on her tablet. It wasn't just proof. It was pattern. Madison's edits came after her own every time. The data told the story, even if no one wanted to hear it yet. Let them come for me, Elena thought. I've got truth in my pocket, and this time I'm not afraid to use it. The next morning, her phone lit up with messages from family. Lauren, Sophie, what the hell was that last night? Jason's furious. Heather left and hasn't answered anyone. Dad, Robert, your mother is still upset. She says the envelope was unnecessary, that you blindsided everyone. I don't know what to think. Brianna, is it true about the locket? About Grandma's will? Can we talk? Elena stared at her screen. The guilt that would have once flooded her was now a ripple. She didn't respond, not yet. Instead, she forwarded a package of files to the ethics office, organized, annotated, time-stamped. Then she made coffee. Black, strong, still in her robe. Back at the Morgan household, the unraveling continued without her. Heather hadn't returned home. Rumors swirled. Robert finally confronted Jason in the kitchen. How long have you been lying to everyone? Jason didn't answer. He never had to, until now. Sophie tried calling Elena, her voice cracking in the voicemail. I should have spoken up at dinner. I knew it wasn't right. I just didn't want to rock the boat. But the boat had already sunk. All Elena had done was stop bailing water. Brianna, though, showed up differently. That evening, she texted, "Meet me, no drama, just coffee, my treat." Elena agreed. Curiosity outweighed resentment. They met at a corner cafe near the park. Outside, snow still clung to the branches. Brianna looked nervous. The locket was gone. I didn't know, she said, hands wrapped tight around her cup. I swear, he told me you gave it up, that Grandma changed her mind. Elena stayed silent. I found the matching copy of the will, in my mom's attic, the one with your name. A long pause. I'm sorry, Brianna whispered. I let him divide us. I let myself believe him. Elena stared at her cousin's face, one that once felt like a sister's. You wanted to believe him, she said softly. We all did. I want to give it back, Brianna said. She handed her a small velvet box. Inside, the silver locket, still polished, still Evelyn. I don't know if it fixes anything, Brianna added. It doesn't, Elena replied, but it's a start. That night, Elena received another message, this one from Heather. I read everything. I confronted him. I filed for divorce. Thank you for not staying silent. Elena stared at the text for a long time, then typed back, You deserve truth too. At work, things shifted just as quickly. After receiving Elena's documentation, the internal review launched an emergency audit. 2 days later, Elena was called in, not to be reprimanded, but to present her timeline. The chief of compliance reviewed her logs line by line. By the end of the week, Madison was placed on leave. Elena was reinstated, quietly, efficiently, and then promoted. Her boss stopped by her office that Friday. Your work speaks for itself, Elena. I'm sorry it had to get to this point before we really saw you. Elena didn't smile, but she nodded. She had learned not to trust applause that came after the damage was done. On Sunday, her father called again, this time voice low. I let your brother control the narrative for too long, he said. I thought staying quiet kept peace. I see now, it just handed him the script. Elena didn't interrupt. If you ever want to try again, just with me, I'd like to. We'll see, she said, but thank you for saying that. One by one, the myths of Jason Morgan unraveled. The perfect son, the loyal husband, the business genius, and in their place, silence. a silence that finally had room for someone else to speak. Elena looked at the locket resting beside her journal, fingers brushing its edges. For the first time, she felt something steady in her chest. Not pride, not anger, clarity. If you've ever watched a golden boy's shine crack under the truth, type 3. The email subject line hit like a slap. Notice of termination, Madison Kane. It wasn't addressed to Elena directly, but she had been CC'd as project lead. Just 2 months ago, she was the one being accused of misconduct, suspended without a hearing, stripped of access to the very project she built from scratch. Now, Madison was out, terminated, for breach of ethical conduct, data manipulation, and professional misconduct. Elena sat still for a long moment, not triumphant, not vengeful, just steady. She clicked the next message in her inbox. It was from the executive team. We're renaming the Eco Hub Design Suite, the Morgan model. There it was, her name, finally attached to something she created. They see me now. But more importantly, I see myself. It had been 6 weeks since Christmas dinner. 6 weeks since she walked away from the table that never had a seat for her. Since she placed the truth beneath Jason's plate and left the house with her spine straighter than it had been in years. 6 weeks since the silence from her mother began. A silence that now felt more like protection than punishment. Elena stood in her apartment kitchen, sunlight spilling across teal walls. She hadn't chosen neutral tones this time. No more playing safe for family visits. The books on her shelves weren't curated for display. The art on her walls was bold. The space was hers. She set 2 mugs of coffee on the table. I still can't believe she did that to you, Kimberly said, pulling out a chair. Elena's mom, added Marcus, her husband, telling her to eat in the car? Technically, she said, just for today, Elena replied with a dry smile. They all laughed, but underneath it was something deeper, understanding. Every Thursday night since New Year's, Elena had hosted dinner with Kimberly and Marcus, colleagues turned family. They talked about everything from architectural ethics to dating horror stories, and no one ever talked over her. No one minimized her pain. Here, she didn't need to prove her worth. It was a given. But that didn't mean the past stopped knocking. On the second Sunday in February, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. Mom's planning Easter. Wants to know if you'll come. No drama, just family. Elena stared at the screen. She thought of the photo from that Christmas, now deleted from her phone, of the silent table, of Jason's smirk, of her own voice trembling, but firm, as she read the note aloud. She didn't reply. Instead, she texted her father. Lunch next week? Their meeting was awkward at first. Robert Morgan had always been a man of few words, but this time, he came prepared. I let your brother define who you were in this family, he said, and I let your mother dismiss you, because I didn't want the conflict. That was my failure. Elena didn't interrupt. I want to be better, even if it's late. She nodded. Then let's start here. No forgiveness, not yet. But a boundary, a beginning. Brianna came next. She invited Elena to dinner, just the 2 of them, and brought out a box of Grandma Evelyn's journals. Pages filled with recipes, old stories, and drawings of the locket Elena now wore around her neck. She really wanted you to have it, Brianna said, and I want to help you document her story, the real one. For the first time in years, they felt like family again, not because they were related, but because they chose honesty over comfort. The only voice still missing was Susan Morgan. After weeks of silence, she finally sent an email, carefully written, terse, polished. I'm sorry if you felt hurt by the seating arrangements. That was never the intention. I hope you understand how difficult that night was for everyone. Elena read it twice, then deleted it. No reply. No reopening of that door. Some boundaries stay closed. Spring arrived. The city thawed. Cherry blossoms bloomed outside Elena's windows. She stood on her small balcony, journal in hand, writing, I used to think I had to earn love by making myself smaller. Now I know love that has to be earned through silence isn't love at all. Inside, her phone buzzed. New event. Eco Hub celebration, April 15th, 6 p.m. Guest of honor, Elena Morgan. She didn't cry, but her eyes stung. This time she wouldn't be left out of the photo. This time there would be a seat, centered, not sidelined, earned not through groveling, but through clarity. At the event, she wore red, not subtle, not safe. Her name was printed on every program. Her speech was short but quiet fire. Thank you for seeing what I built, for letting the work speak louder than the myths. And when someone asked later if she would ever reconcile with her family, she smiled. Family isn't defined by dinner invitations. It's defined by respect. Some people earn their seat at your table. Others don't. Then she raised her glass and toasted the room. To the tables we build ourselves. Back home that night, she hung a new photo on her wall. Not of Christmas, of Kimberly, Marcus, Brianna, her father, laughing at her dining table under soft lights. It wasn't the family she was born into. It was the family she built. If you've ever walked away from the wrong table to build your own, type 4.